Thank you so much for both of you for making space for this conversation today. As y'all know, Blooming Willow is celebrating 10 years this
Woohoo!
year. And in honor of our 10th anniversary, we're highlighting 10 diamonds from the decade of Blooming Willow. And for this month, our diamond that we wanted to focus on is what happens when changemakers gather. And so for this conversation, I'm talking to Blooming Willow's founder and CEO, Leslie Avant-Brown, and one of her master teachers, Kim Fowler. So to kick off this conversation, I'd love to hear from y'all, your name, where you're from or where you're currently based, and what's bringing you joy lately.
Well, I will jump in. And my name is Kim Fowler. I am currently based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And what is bringing me joy is I'm about to get on a plane at 9 p.m. tonight and fly to New Zealand, and I'll be there for 3 weeks. And that's like really lighting me up like crazy.
I love it. I'm Leslie Avant-Brown from Detroit, Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan. And what is bringing me joy in this moment is absolutely being in space with Kim Fowler. I've been giddy since she said yes. I'm giddy.
So funny.
I'm giddy in this moment, right? Like, yeah, this is bringing me so much joy. And then to have a second time coming up with another master teacher later this week, this is joy. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I'm with that. In this moment, the joy is you, baby.
Yes.
And I guess I can introduce myself also. I'm Queen Tinsley Pearson. I'm a communications consultant with Blooming Willow. I'm currently based in the Bay in California. And what's been bringing me joy lately, it's moments like this with clients where I get to talk with them and learn more about them and learn more about their story to like share it with their communities. So this is also bringing me a lot of joy right now, even though it's like gray and rainy and dreary outside. This space is bringing me joy. So Leslie, I'd love to hear more from you around why it felt important to share the story of what happens when changemakers gather when thinking about Blooming Willow's 10-year anniversary.
Yes. I think for me, I was meeting with one of my colleagues and they were talking about how much work we pour into supporting change in the community as coaches and how little recognition there is of all of that contribution. And so when I started to think about this 10-year anniversary, I thought, what a cool time to start to tell the unknown story of coaching in communities. And so it had to begin with my story, right? Because I do believe in the ripple of healing and just allowing that to go out so that more coaches are encouraged to tell these stories. They're not being written, especially amongst my BIPOC coaches. We're not pausing to write. So this is a way of telling our story. Yes.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, when before we found Blooming Willow, when I was at Arc Southeast and we were looking for a coach, we were just like, okay, we definitely want someone who's like a person of color. Ideally they're Black, but like we want them to get us, and like, who are these people? Like, where can we find them? And then we found Blooming Willow and we're like, oh my gosh, there's actually a community of amazing BIPOC coaches. And yeah, that story is so important. Like, how did we get here? Who are the folks that got us here? So how did the two of y'all meet each other?
I was hanging out on a street corner in downtown. No, I was teaching a coaching certification class through an organization called Leadership That Works with Belma Gonzalez, who's also someone who is part of who you're going to be interviewing if you haven't already. Leslie was in this cohort we had, and it was a phenomenal group of people. And out of that cohort actually came 2 coaching programs, which is pretty, and maybe more that something I don't know about, but Leslie started one of them. It was a joy to be working with, I think it wasn't all BIPOC class, as I'm remembering. I think that's right. Or we might have had one or two
Mhm.
folks that weren't folks of color. But um, I had been training for an organization that where I had gotten trained as a coach, and I had actually trained for them for a number of years. And then I met Virginia Kellogg, who was one of the founders of Leadership That Works, and that's how I became a trainer for them. And the shift for me to go from classes that were predominantly white to classes that were predominantly BIPOC and Black was like, I was home and I could be myself as a trainer, as a coach, which I didn't always feel I could be in the other settings. So I didn't have to deal with racial stuff between me, unspoken, mostly between me and my because I only had white co-leaders when I was training with it for this other organization. So anyway, it was a fabulous experience for me as a trainer, as a leader, and the class melded. I mean, they really they got to know each other pretty quickly, and they were all, and everybody, brought so many different things. Leslie was, this was her first experience around doing this kind of work with coaching. I don't think you'd been coached before, had you, Leslie?
I had not.
Yeah. So she
But
jumped
great
right on in with all feet. And she absorbed the work like a sponge. And she knew that she was headed towards something. And she, in that class, actually found the Blooming Willow part of herself and really like adopted that. I mean, she like took it on immediately. It's not like it wasn't there before, but it became just so clear, like, heck yeah, this woman is a Blooming Willow. She's got purpose, she's got skill, and she's going to bring that out into the world. And so that's what she did.
Hmm. I love you.
I love you too. I don't see you enough, but I love you.
Thank you so much. And I think to back up a little bit, Kim, I'm interested in what led you into being interested to be trained as a coach.
Well, I got into coaching because I took a fundamentals class from where I was trained. And the thing that struck me was they were basically teaching that everybody has their own answers and that everyone has their own wisdom that can solve things, that they just need to have somebody help them find those resources and bring them to the fore and use them. And I had been involved in something called reevaluation counseling for a number of years, a while ago. And that was also fundamental to RC. Like, everybody's inherently good. They just need somebody to help them reach that inner goodness that doesn't always come out in us for so many reasons. So I said, well, I think maybe I have a new career here. And lo and behold, I did. And it was the first time in my life I chose a career. All the jobs I had had before, people said, you'd be good doing this. I said, okay. And I did them. They were varied and they were great jobs, and some of them I like more than others, but they weren't something that I went into and said, wow, I think I can be really good at this. So that's what brought me in.
Okay. And I'm curious, Leslie, what brought you to coaching?
Yeah, it wasn't like I could be good at that. I think I came to coaching because I feel like I bring every interview down with my answer. I was really sad, and I was in a job that was like not a fit, and it was so much not a fit that I was losing myself. And so I came into coaching CFT very wounded and very silent. I know Kim and Belma can tell you, like, I didn't really talk during class, right? I was more of an observer, a witness, right? I didn't volunteer. right? The only reason that Blooming Willow came about and I got the name was because Kim said, get your butt up here for one of the demos and forced me to birth forced me to meet my future self, who gave me my coach's stand. And so I really do think that it was about just trusting myself, even when it was quiet and not quite aligned, that something was off, right? And so I think that's what brought me to coaching, is that I knew that something was off and I knew it had to get better. Yeah.
I'd forgotten you were quiet. You've been not quiet for so long. I completely forgotten that part of you.
I know. I didn't stop. I haven't stopped talking since.
What was that shift like for you, Leslie, to be like called out in class and be like, okay, I guess I have to talk?
Yeah. At the time, I was completely annoyed, right? Because I was like, I think I had made it. It was a 9-month program. I think I made it to month 7 as
Wow.
like an observer, which is very much a part of who I am. So it wasn't in denial. Folks wouldn't pick up on it, but it didn't encompass all of who I am, right? Like as a kid, I was more like I am now. Right, in touch with my full being, very lively, very much a talker, very much what my sister calls a volunteerer. And so for that to be away from me lets me know how wounded and shut down I was. And so I do think like being in a space where I couldn't hide, where Kim just is a powerful, powerful empath and intuit, and was able to see me and say, now is the time, no more hiding from yourself. And to have that done, I'm getting emotional, by another Black woman. Yeah. I think that is what broke my healing down to a deeper level, to be seen by somebody that I wanted to be seen by.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And she's only been making it bigger ever since. You know, and I gotta say, for me, there is a very important part of coaching, which I hope we conveyed when we did the training, which is you gotta love your clients. You really got, I mean, I'm not saying fall in love with them and date them, it ain't that, it's like, in fact, you really don't want to do that. But it's that sort of inherent love for another human being that we too often forget. And especially these days, it feels like that love has gone underground in a lot of ways. And it's not that it's gone, it's still there, but we don't access it, or we're afraid to access it. I mean, kind of what Leslie was talking about, how she was feeling before she did that demo. And I think that's an opportunity but that coaching is an opportunity for that to come forth in the world again. Because when clients really notice and know that their coach loves them and cares about them, not going to take care of them, they got to do the work. But you see what's possible as a coach, and you want nothing more. It's why you're in the biz. You want them to see that too, and to own that, and to have that, and to bring that out in the world. And to see that happen is glorious. I mean, it is a birthing in a way, sort of. I've never had kids, so I probably shouldn't make that analogy. But anyway.
Yeah, I do think that love vibration, right, is like the root of healing centered coaching, right? Yeah. Is like that there is that love, right? And all of the programs that I've created, Kim has been a part of, right? And so sort of beyond that, I created a community coaching program, and Kim was there with her love, right? I created this program, and Kim was there with her love. So I do think that it is the love that kind of supports the possibility and the connection, right? And I think that is what is possible when change makers gather, is like that love connection that allows for possibility, right? That allows us to remember, like, all the stuff we're hearing is true, but it's not the only truth, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that allows them to love themselves, which is really, once you got a client that really is in touch with that, in touch with that self-love, they can do anything.
Mm.
Leslie, you already started to touch on this, but what impact did Kim have on you as a coach, as a mentor, as a master teacher?
Yeah. I think Kim continues to have an impact on me. I want to be heading to New Zealand, right?
Mm.
I remember one of the first things that Kim did that just surprised me, right? Because while she's like joyful and silly, she sometimes can appear poised and polished, right? And so you can't tell when she's all fabulous with her pashminas and all of this, right? Who is this beautiful being? And I remember she did coaching on wearing a polka dot bikini, right? And I was just like, what in the front of the class, right? And so I think, what Kim has been for me is always the edge, right? Like, you think you're free, look. All right. So just that continued invitation to, like, just be more of myself, right? That's what Kim brings out, not only in me, but in everybody in her world, right? Like, she brings that authenticity, right? And just that potential to just stretch, right? It's like, she does it when she breathes, right? Just being around her, you're like, I wonder if I could move to the middle of the desert, right?
Thank you, Leslie. That's lovely. It got easier as I get older, and I kind of go, I ain't putting up with this shit anymore. So you saw me as I was entering into all that.
But to have that in a coach vibration,
Mm.
right? To have a coach that continues to stretch towards your more authentic self that is evolving, right? I think that is the gift that Kim brings in her coaching, right? It's like, what else, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm curious, what has healing centered coaching made possible in both of your lives?
Well, it gave me an opportunity to coach people from the community, which I hadn't had a lot of opportunity to do. And every time I did it, I was going, wow, I want to do more of this. I really want to help people that never ever considered doing something like this, or stepping into who they are. So, I mean, the community is full of people that are stepping out boldly. There's no question about that. And there's a way that through coaching, they get to understand who that is when they're stepping out in a whole new way, in a deeper way, in a more personal way. And I just felt like that was a gift that coaching offered, and to be able to participate in that was it was a huge gift to me. I think I've already said that. I'll say it again. And the other thing is that I think when we offer to people a way for them to be aware of, okay, how are you doing this? How are you maintaining this fabulous work you're doing and this incredibly difficult work that you're doing in the community, challenging, dangerous sometimes work that you're doing. So if we can help through coaching, give them ways that they can self-protect, do self-care, and really step back for a moment and not feel like it's always a push, 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 which is so easy to feel because stuff keeps coming at you. The more you do, the more there is to do. And if we can give them ways to pause and to breathe and to sit and notice, what do you need? Not what does somebody else need? Not what does the community organization you're working, what do you need? And I think the more that coaches that are doing this kind of work discover that and actually give themselves that time, they're better equipped both to do the work in the community and to know when it's time to stop. And I think that's really hard for a lot of people that are especially heading up groups, organizations. So when they can realize, like, yeah, you've done the work, you now get to do what you need to do and what you want to do. So.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm thinking about the first time you came to one of the community coaching classes, right? And there was a gentleman who was a returning citizen, recently released after being exonerated from a life sentence. And Kim looked at me and said, "Are you sure, coach? I'm supposed to, how will I be received by this community?" And literally after the first 5 minutes of Kim holding space and coaching them and him feeling the love, he broke down and just started crying, right? And I think that is the healing that started to happen within our work with the level of care and sacredness and sincerity that we held it. I think that's what began to birth healing-centered coaching for me, is to see when we showed up very intentionally, very disciplined as coaches in creating this safe space, then people would begin to open up. People would begin to heal themselves because they are the healers. But when we show up in such an intentional and sacred manner as coaches, really bringing in that love, bringing in that possibility, I think that became the birth of healing-centered coaching. And I think before it was kind of closeted. We were just doing it like, this is just a little different over here. Don't mind us. And then when I started to form Blooming Willow, I decided to more intentionally name what it was that we were doing within community coaching, which was really centering and creating space for that healing as the center of the growth process. Yeah.
I love that background. I love hearing y'all's stories. And I think it's also like cool to know the impact that Blooming Willow has had in my own life, and like to see like the ripples. Like I'm like, oh wow, Leslie was an observer too, because Leslie knows I too was an observer when she was our coach and she would do our staff and board retreats. I would be very quiet, just watching everyone. And there was this moment at a staff and board retreat where Leslie literally just called me out and was like, "Quita, you've been very quiet." And I was just like,
that was my inner Kim Fowler. Now you know who I was inviting.
Now I know.
It's not original.
Wow, I could be Kim.
You can be Kim too.
I too was annoyed. I was like, why is Leslie talk right now?
It was annoying. That's a whole new one. I kind of like that, actually.
It's like, but it was like the question I needed to be asked in that moment, because I did have a lot of things to say that I was literally just not saying, and it actually benefited everyone if I just opened my mouth and say all the things that I was thinking. I mean, granted, it brought the mood down, which is why I wasn't saying it, because I knew it would shift energies, because I was trying to hold people accountable, but it actually made us better as a unit. So I'm like, wow, thank you, Leslie, for like calling me out in that moment.
I think that's what we talk about, calling out the power, and we talk about it in a really technical way, but that's calling out the power, right? When you see someone who is standing next to their power to say, I need you to step over. And if I need to be that irritant to get you to move, so be it, right? I do think that's the other part of coaching, is that accountability, right? Is that sort of invitation to not hide.
Yeah. I think that's that invitation to not hide. That's good. It's true.
And finally, what would y'all want to share with change makers who are interested in either getting coached themselves or becoming coaches?
Trust that you can do this. And even if you can't get to that place of like fully trusting, do it anyway. Because sometimes that trust doesn't come until you're in the program and really starting to get to know yourself in a deeper way and in a more honest way. Trust that you deserve it. And that's a big thing, because there's a lot of times I'm coaching people that are doing community work and it's like everybody else deserves it, but I don't deserve it. And that's a very old generational white supremacy and all kinds of that stuff story, because you absolutely did not. You got to. You deserve it and you got to do it. And also know that it's an opportunity to be surrounded by other people who are in similar situations as you are, and maybe feeling some of the same ways. So you get to share that, because you're going to have an opportunity to be you'll be coached and there'll be classes, but you'll also have the opportunity to have smaller groups and really share and get coached on how you're feeling. That's how you start growing. And the more you see how you're growing through the coaching, that also helps make you a better coach. So there's so many different ways for you to enter the program and to learn from the program. There's just, there's like all of these branches that all lead to stars. It's all brilliance at the end. So, yeah.
What was the question, Quita? Because I was all in the branches to the stars. I'm like,
Yes.
Kim, why didn't you tell us that the branches went to the stars?
Yeah.
Did you figure it out?
After this call, I'm going to do the branches to the stars.
Yes. The question was, what would you share with change makers who are interested in exploring coaching?
Yeah, I would say give yourself permission to explore, right? There's that book, What Would You Want to Do with Your Wild and Precious Life, or something like that. And my thing is this, for a lot of folks, you're not happy. You're not content. This is not serving you. So what are you risking if you don't change things, right? Really give yourself permission to try something new. Give yourself permission to prioritize yourself. Give yourself permission, as my beloved Kim said, ask yourself, what do I need now? Right? This is a community where you can ask yourself these questions. Even if you don't want to become a full-time coach and start your own firm, these are skills that can support you to just navigate life differently and more in your power. I think the other thing that I loved about the offering that Kim and Belma designed along with Virginia Kellogg was that this version of coaching really does begin to look at what are the connectors, right, to other strategies, so that people can become hybrids of coaching, where they're coaching alongside of other skill sets, right? So folks from my program became mega consultants, right? They became super empowered executive directors and C-suite folks. They became very engaged in transforming what community work looked like on a ground level. So I think, I think the way of the old of you have to go through coaching to become a coach and hang your shingle is a thing of the past. I think it's still a possibility, but not the only possibility for this work, right? This is about finding alignment and balance.
We certainly need more of that.
Yes.
Thank you both for sharing your story and making space to share the ripples of it all. It's really beautiful to know how Blooming Willow came to be, like literally how the name like the very essence came to be. Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to share this with the Blooming Willow community.
Thank you for tuning in to this conversation featuring Blooming Willow's founder, Leslie Avant-Brown, with her mentor, Kim Fowler. You can visit our website at bloomingwillow.com to learn more about our offerings, our coaching certification programs, and all we do to support Changemakers. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.